I thought recording a How They Should Adapt Nynaeve would be difficult, but oh my god, How They Should Adapt Moiraine is so much harder to do. Moiraine Damodred is one of the most important characters in all of the Wheel of Time when it comes to what she does for the series, her impact on the world, fan favorite, power, initiating things. All of this is just cranked up to a 10 when it comes to this character. She is utterly crucial to so much. And on top of that, she is a very hard character, I feel, to perform and frame properly. And that's for a few reasons we're going to need to touch on. So in my last video of how you should adapt a character, I focused a whole lot on Nynaeve's motivations, her early series decision making, and how her character evolved as a result, because I feel like that's where most of the energy should go there. For Moiraine, it's a bit different. Obviously, her character still does evolve. She does change, learn, but not to the extent as many other Wheel of Time characters, because she is largely grown. She has largely become the incredibly capable, powerful woman she is by the time our series begins. The lessons she learns are more just how to deal with a lot of these stubborn, young, wool-headed farm boys that she's working with. And that already right there is a very crucial point. Early on in the series, Moiraine needs to feel so much more capable, so much more powerful, present, and beyond in terms of understanding power and unknown things to us, the viewer, going in. She should be framed as a real mystery, a crucial element that we, the viewer, have not been privy to this point of fully understanding. And so for me to get into this properly, I need to talk about Moraine's influences as a character. What brought about Moiraine? And obviously I've said this before a million times on my channel, and I'm going to try to make this the last time I ever say it. Moiraine Damodred is the ultimate evolution of the Merlin Gandalf fantasy trope. She embodies so much that those types of characters did. She acts as a guide to the protagonist, to the wider world, and then by extension us, the viewer. That's just how those characters worked back then, which already is a huge job to be on a character's shoulders, to subtly and without just seeming like you're spoon-feeding a reader information, tell us about this world. And I think Moiraine does it as well as the best in the history of fantasy. On top of that, these classic wizards need to have good character. Again, something Moiraine, I feel, absolutely nails. And they need to have a presence of something transcendent, something beyond the understanding of the world our protagonists are used to. And again, something that, if you've read The Eye of the World, Moiraine does arguably better than any of the rest. Moiraine is utterly terrifying in a way. She is brilliant, she is present, lethal, she fills every scene she's in for the first few books without question, maybe even beyond that. And that's because of so many great choices Robert Jordan made in introducing and carrying on the initial feelings this character gave us, the reader. But let's get into how she's the evolution of the Merlin Gandalf trope before we go much further. And that comes down to a few key choices Robert Jordan made. I'm gonna get into the deeper ones in a minute here, but let's start with something that was small, but had a huge impact on how she was perceived by not only the characters in the village, but us, the reader, as well. When Gandalf first shows up in the Shire in the Fellowship of the Ring, he's greeted as a friend, someone who's been around. They understand him. I understand this is different in The Hobbit, but I'm pulling from The Lord of the Rings for this example. And in The Hobbit, while he's still more of an unwelcome guest, there's not really much of an air of fear about him. This is different for Moiraine, and this comes down to Robert Jordan's key philosophical difference between The Lord of the Rings and The Wheel of Time. Gandalf is never, early on in the series, portrayed as something to be distrusted or afraid of beyond just some hobbit squabbling about strangers. The Eye of the World, though, frames Moiraine entirely differently, much more realistically, in my opinion. The villagers, while not maybe being outright afraid of her, distrust her, are skeptical, definitely have tinges of fear, and more or less just want to keep their distance aside from just admiring how ridiculously beautiful she is to them. This era of mystery and distrust results in so much more tension around the character, so much more hesitance to invest in them as someone to rely on, which not only is with the protagonist, but once again, in a first-time read-through of The Wheel of Time, extends to you, the reader. A friend of mine, Murphy Napier, is currently going through The Wheel of Time, and while she was reading The Eye of the World, she was continually texting me about how she doesn't really trust Moiraine yet. Is she serving the shadow? I don't know. This is a bit sketch, and I loved that, and I thought it was an excellent example of how Robert Jordan's brilliant choice there will affect the the reader. It makes this whole world feel less safe. Therefore, all the stakes rise. So this entry into the world, this gate into the wider world of the Wheel of Time, instead of being this friendly wizard that we, the reader, understand is someone we should trust, becomes a bit more scary. Maybe we can't trust it 100%. And I want this to be in the performance and framing of Moiraine so strongly in the beginning. There are horror elements in the Eye of the World at the beginning, without a doubt. There is things that are meant to scare you and unsettle you as the reader, and I don't want Moiraine to be seen as an escape from those. She is something that might be a beacon of hope in the Eye of the World, but is never explicitly told to us to be that. In fact, we are given evidence that she could be the opposite. Obviously, to us who have finished the series, spoilers, we know she's not that. So to the actress who was portraying Moiraine, please keep these things in mind, that Moiraine fills every scene she is in early on in the series, that she is utterly wise and brilliant. She has a mission she is on that we, the audience, do not understand. There are layers here that we are not privy to. There should be a level of intimidation and distrust communicated to us. That isn't saying that Moiraine isn't a good person, and we are given an evidence that she's a good person left and right, and with the context of later in the series, we know that's just her being genuine. But again, to the beginning of the series, it shouldn't be shown as that. I love this character so much because there's just those subtle changes that have such huge ripples down the road. And now let's talk about some of the more significant differences between Moiraine and what typically is a standard fantasy wizard. Moiraine really works for herself, which isn't entirely different than every previous fantasy wizard, especially some of the more notable big ones. But what is different there is she is on a mission she is keeping from everybody. And she has an innate distrust of a lot of the people she should be reporting to, which isn't entirely original, but I think is more key to the core character there than a lot of people think. With the context of what is happening in the White Tower later on, and after reading A New Spring, the fact that Moiraine was aware of a lot of it means that she really is her against everybody. She cannot trust more than a handful of people in the entire world with a mission that's been put in her lap that's the equivalent of a sentient, maybe going crazy nuclear warhead being put in your arms, and you have to babysit it and then let it detonate in the right point under its own decision. That's hard to do, man. And she is capable and strong enough that she takes minimal missteps on that entire journey. And those missteps she really cannot be blamed for. Just kind of like Nynaeve, they almost happen because of just a lack of full context of the situation, which no character can be blamed for. If you don't know everything, you can't make the right choice. 100% of the time. Sometimes you can, but that's just dumb luck. Matt. And this brings me to my final point of just talking about why I think Moiraine is really just one of the best wizard types we've seen, transcending a lot of the tropes. And that is, yes, most previous fantasy wizards have a lot of power, they give a lot of information, they are great in a fight, they're really interesting and fun and have personality, but a lot of them lack a certain level of agency. A lot of them don't really butt heads with the protagonist who's going on this journey. Many of them kind of just sit back and become these encyclopedias the protagonist turns to and says, "Hey, what about this?" And then they go, "There's your information." And then everyone moves on and they continue going on their way. Moiraine ain't about that. Moiraine pushes back, lets her will be known, and corrects people to the right path, which is something I found to be a way more realistic result of having a wise wizard in your party. I need to stop saying wizard, she's an Aes Sedai, but you know what I mean. I'm talking about in the general scope of fantasy. She's very unwilling to let people make dumb decisions. She is often making decisions without disseminating 100% of the knowledge because time is of the essence and she doesn't have time for that crap. And this leads to tension between her and the party. She can't sit and explain everything, so she must say, "No, trust me, do this." And with everything I've said before about the general era of possible distrust bleeding into these relationships, it adds a certain dynamic to the group right away that I find very interesting. It almost becomes our protagonist's job to just go down one path with this person who's pulled you from your home you don't know, and as far as you know might be responsible for everything that's happening, or go it alone in this wide world. And we see how that works out when these people are alone without her. And so she immediately becomes more believable to me. She's not just willing to let someone else make a decision just because they're the protagonist. She knows best in these situations. She knows these people don't trust her, but she has to just lead the group. And when things do go wrong, it's largely not her fault. It's someone from the village doing something extraordinarily dumb, like picking up something they shouldn't, Matt. So to whoever's writing these scripts and to the actress portraying this role, please fill Moiraine with as much agency as you possibly can. Let her lead this group for as long as possible, because that is her job in the books. She almost never hands off her metaphorical staff and lets someone else take charge. If this was in the hands of a lesser author, they probably would have just had Lan start suddenly making decisions, or Rand take the lead and Moiraine be like, oh, it's cool, it's a test, yeah, you take the lead. That makes no sense when it's life or death. You don't let people take a test when it's life or death. You make the decision and you say, let's go. So to boil it down, to summarize the video, make Moiraine lethal, make her intimidating, make her fill the room, make her a real entry into the wheel of time, capture that essence of doubt in trusting her, wrap the elements of horror and mystery in this world, and make Moiraine possibly seem like a part of them. That will immediately add a relationship dynamic to the show that will be unique. I have not seen that before in a fantasy adaptation, and it will be brilliant to watch unfold. And while we, the viewers, slowly start to understand the world of the Wheel of Time, start to understand the limitations of Moraine's power as the broader magic system is explained to us, the context of everything that's happening, Moiraine should be so aggressive as a character in terms of confidence in her knowledge, in terms of being able to resolve situations, that fully shouldn't take away from the agency that's been built up. Train us as a viewer as the series progresses, the seasons go down the road, that while initially she's this source of doubt, this source of distrust, maybe we start to realize she's actually what we should be looking for information. She's actually someone we should come to depend on. She's intelligent, she's kind, she's smart. We begin to understand this. And so by when we reach a certain point in the series and she's pulled out from under us, and the character who we've developed as a safety net, the character who we, the viewer, understand is the rock this entire party can lay on, suddenly that rock shatters. That's how you land it. That's how you land that moment and communicate to the audience that your party's now alone. Anyway, that's just my thoughts on the character of Moiraine and how she should be adapted. Let me know in the comments down below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you want Moiraine to take more of a back seat, more of a front seat? I'm curious to see what you have to say in the comments down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video. Leave a dislike if you thought it was crap. And I look forward to reading the comment section on this one. Have a good one, y'all. Peace.